This year honestly wasn't looking the best for foldable phones. And as someone who has stuck with an iPhone for a very long time now, that's saying something. So when the OnePlus Open landed on my doorstep, you'll have to forgive me for being a bit lazy at checking it out. But actually, I think this phone might be the best damn phone I've reviewed for this entire year. Now, I've always seen the foldable phone as the next and most natural progression for mobile phones. You take this slab of a traditional mobile phone and turn it into something that can also be a small tablet. We've seen Samsung and their Z Fold shape, now nicknamed the candy bar design, with it being like long and slim when it's closed. Their Z Flip shape, which heralds back to the days when flip phones were popular. And this year, we finally saw Google with their first attempt at a foldable and their kind of more passport-sized foldable phone. But they've all had their drawbacks. They're heavier, sometimes they're awkward to use and with lower quality cameras than their non-foldable like brothers and sisters. But that is not the case with the OnePlus Open. It weighs about the same as an iPhone 15 Pro Max. It has a 120Hz adaptive refresh AMOLED screen, the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 chip that I'm a huge fan of, a truckload of cameras all over this thing, a side-mounted fingerprint sensor, there's also the alert slider on the side as well, which I'm also a big fan of, 67-watt fast wired charging, no wireless charging though, and all of this in a package that is incredibly thin, incredibly lightweight, and dare I say that it's easier to use and hold than any other foldable I've used so far. But the first thing I thought when I picked up this phone, actually a few things, but firstly it feels small and light, but the screen looks beautiful. I can't actually put my finger on why. It actually has a slightly lower pixels per inch than the iPhone 15 Pro Max, but it just looks really sharp. It also goes to a maximum 2800 peak nit max brightness, which is just crazy bright outside. And the fold in the middle really is the best I've seen in a foldable phone so far. And watching content on this thing just kicks ass. It is such a nice experience. I just love how with like the YouTube app, you can basically pinch and zoom it in as much or as little as you want. Though it doesn't seem to come across to apps like Netflix, which just zooms in all the way in or zooms in all the way out. And it also forces you to use your phone in the landscape position. But one thing I really do enjoy using the OnePlus Open is their implementation of multitasking. Now you get a maximum of 3 windows in one group, and it kind of works like this canvas that you can move things around into and quickly switch apps. It does take some time getting used to, but I just like this approach over Samsung's implementation where you can basically open as many things you want in one view, which is kind of fun for a minute, but in reality it isn't really very practical. Now I always get asked questions on switching from iPhone over to Android, and I'm thinking of making a dedicated video about that. So yeah, if you are interested, let me know down in the comments down below that like and subscribe button. But fundamentally, you can plug in a cable to your iPhone and then into your OnePlus or your Android phone and transfer most of your content across. Now, the biggest thing I hear, of course, is the whole iMessage conversation around like blue bubbles versus green bubbles. But for the last 3 years, I've been using an app called Beeper that lets me send iMessages on any device. Like I use it on my Android phones, I also use it on my Windows PC, but I also still use it on my Mac and my iPhone. And not because of the whole iMessage thing, but because Beeper also allows me to centralize all of my social media chats into one central place. It's created by the guy who first created the Pebble smartwatch, and I just love that I now have a single app that combines my chats from iMessage, from WhatsApp, Facebook, Discord, Twitter, Instagram, Slack, basically any social media platform into one single app. So when I want to message somebody, now there's no like, oh wait, which social media app do I need to open to message them? I can literally just go into Beeper and worst case, just search for the conversation and then carry it on from there. There is one consideration when using an app such as Beeper though, is that you're giving them access to your account for them to be able to like play the middleman and then kind of relay messages onto you. I trust that they're doing their job. Now I also use these tiny little security keys where I can, which means I have to use them when logging in from any new device on a new location. But especially when it comes to iMessage, you're basically logging into your Apple iCloud account on a virtual Mac that like Beeper owns in their own cloud. So technically they could access all of your iCloud data, your photos, like all the data, like everything in your iCloud account. Now, personally, I've decided recently that I don't want to give them access to, this level. So I've stopped using iMessage via Beeper. But I am in a pretty lucky position where most people are messaging me outside on like WhatsApp or Facebook Messenger already. I know that's not the same in places like the States. But do with that as you wish, of course. This isn't sponsored, just a happy user of Beeper for a number of years now. Now, one good piece of news with the OnePlus Open, though, that I was relieved to hear, is that it's powered by the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2. And honestly, like any phone that I've tested with this chip has performed flawlessly. Through multitasking or opening apps, browsing around, just switching apps, just everything I do on this phone is an absolute joy. Even the latest Pixel Tensor chips seem to have caught up in terms of performance. But the only thing I'm yet to see over in the kind of Android world is a watch that is as fast and fluid as these latest generation of Snapdragon phones. Something that I'm really hoping to see more of very soon because, well, it's almost 2024 and Apple have been making smartwatches for almost 10 years, and they are not slow. Yet the likes of Samsung, who are on their 6th generation of watch, I still saw issues with it slowing down. Now the Pixel Watch 2 actually is the closest, I would say, to one that isn't that slow, but it still has some work to do. But another good thing about the Snapdragon means that this phone also has pretty best-in-class battery life. Now I've actually had a bit of a weird few weeks using this phone. We've just come back from New York. We've also been moving my kind of home YouTube studio about with all of the chargers and stuff. So the charging on this phone has been a bit all over the place, but this phone has comfortably lasted me more than a day, and in some cases, multiple days when I haven't had a chance to use it that much. I mean, we're on 74% battery life right now, and I didn't really use it yesterday because I was doing things. Now you can also get up to 67 watts with the included charger, which gives you a full battery and around 40 minutes, which is pretty damn good, which I would love to test. But when OnePlus shipped me this phone to try out and review, they literally just threw the phone into a jiffy bag. So no charging brick, no cable. And if you don't use their special like super VOC charger and cable thing, then you're not going to get those fast charging speeds. But that is not a problem for most people since the brick and cable are included in the box. Now the other thing I love about the OnePlus Open is their choice of cameras. Now I took this phone with me on my trips to New York and one at Longleat here in the UK, which has like Christmas lights and all sorts, and it didn't disappoint. I got a ton of images which look so sharp, even sometimes in really low light, which actually caught me by surprise. Video quality isn't too bad either, and whilst you do get a 6x lens on the camera, you do have to be stood very still for it to be any good, and you can totally forget about shooting any video with it, especially in low light. But most of the time, honestly, this is a camera that can rival many flagship cameras. Though I would still say that cameras like the S23 Ultra win in certain scenarios, and the iPhone 15 Pro still wins when it comes to video. Oh, and of course, the camera that's on the inside, really not that great. And so of course, if you can, I'd always flip the phone around so you can use that rear-facing camera to shoot selfies, which at least is something you can do with a foldable phone. But you all know that phones aren't perfect, so what are the areas that I could see for improvement on the OnePlus Open? Now for me, even though it has Face Unlock, I still like to see secure Face Unlock like we get on the iPhone with Face ID, but we also got on the latest Pixel 8 series recently this year. Like being able to unlock your phone, but also authenticate yourself for things like banking apps and password managers. Wireless charging also missing from this phone, though an issue I have seen is that you can't actually put this phone flat onto a charger because of this huge camera bump on the back. And then you have the pricing, because this phone is still a very expensive phone, even though its rivals actually cost more if you forget about any current discounts available. And of course, there is the question over durability. Even though these are now a few generations in with their screen technology, it is still an expensive phone to go wrong, and therefore, of course, still an expensive phone to fix. So I'd always recommend taking out any additional insurances you can, just to avoid a potentially very costly mistake. And I think the only other missing part of the equation for me here is that they're missing the rest of the ecosystem, if like a ecosystem is something that bothers you. Now with Google, you have the whole Google Home, Google Fit, Google Smart Speakers and other smart devices, which to be fair, I think has only really become a good ecosystem this year. But I love to see so many Android products and brands this year starting to mature and refine their products. Every time I pick up an Android phone, there's always something new and something different to focus on. And I think this time, OnePlus might actually have the best foldable phone of this entire year. What do you think? I think it is time for Samsung and Google to step up their game. So don't forget to catch the after party over on Patreon. Sign up to get any unfiltered behind the scenes look at the products featured in our videos. And if you are still looking for some holiday discounts, Logitech have some huge discounts still available via Best Buy, including my favorite combined case and detachable keyboard. So follow the links down below to check those out. I'll see you in the next one. Cheers, bye-bye.